All right, today we're gonna replace a pressure switch on a Cobalt 60-gallon compressor. Ordered this thing from Lowe's. Had a problem with my pressure switch sticking a while back. Kept running, wouldn't cut off. Ran for about a day. So anyway, pressure switch bad. We're gonna replace it, show y'all, kind of step you through what I did. You know, you can take what you want from it, throw away the rest. I don't care. But like my channel if you would. All right, we're gonna replace this pressure switch on our Cobalt 60-gallon air compressor. This thing got stuck closed, would not shut off. So don't know how long it ran, but it ran a long time. Time to replace it. Contacts got stuck. Here we go. All right, first thing we're gonna do is kill the power to the compressor so we can work on it. Got to disconnect the wires, so find our breaker, turn the breaker off, and always put some kind of tag on it while you're working on it. So nobody comes in here, says the air's off, I need some air, and they turn it on. It wouldn't turn out too good. All right, we got our meter ready here. Put it on volts AC. We're gonna check, make sure our power is off. And it is off, 0 volts. Let's go. So first thing, we got our wire pulled out of there, from the breaker. Now while this thing's still sitting on the pipe, stationary, let's remove these pieces out here so that we don't have to put it in a vise or something. So this is a 9/16. This is a pressure relief valve. Set at about 160 psi, I think. Should tell us on here. So we'll get this out. And we'll remove the pressure gauge. So everything's held in place while you're doing this, so it makes it a lot easier. Let's go reverse from putting it back in. Now we got to remove the wire from the compressor, and we got a 1/4 inch nut driver. Remove this little bracket so we get the compressor wire out, and we got a ground wire to disconnect. So we'll get these undone. And a 1/4 inch nut driver. All right, we got the motor disconnected. Last thing here is disconnect this little air line. This gives the pressure switch something to look at as far as the pressure to monitor to turn it off when it reaches set point. So you just push this little blue clip in and the hose pulls out. All right, so we're all disconnected. We're ready to remove it from the tank. You want to get some channel locks because we don't want this pipe nipple to unscrew. We just want to take the pressure switch off. So you want to hold this while you're removing the pressure switch. All right, we got it held, pipes held. We'll go right here and just loosen it up. And we'll take it off from there. So right here, let's just go ahead with a little wire brush. Clean these threads right here. Oh, shoot, we don't want to do all this work, put it together, this thing's leaking right here. So that means you gotta take it all the way back apart. We'll some might call me crazy, but I like to make double sure. So I'll put a little bit of this pipe compound on the thread, just a Teflon, you know, and I'm still gonna put some Teflon tape on there. Hey, what can it hurt? More the better on this. So this Teflon tape, always hold it like this. You can get your little tail out, get it started, and you roll it this way around the threads. You go the same way you screw the fitting on with the tape. If you don't, when you go to screw the fitting on, it'll try to run your tape off the threads, and that's no good. Put it on there about 3 or 4 wraps. And guess what? I'm gonna still put a little bit more of this pipe dope on there. Come on around. Just a little dab right there. Just lost that painter, that painter. I always said, just put a little dab right there. Make it what you want it. Just to have fun. So I realized there's a plug in here on this port that we're not going to be using, that I got to take out of the old one and put in the new one. So it takes an Allen wrench. So we'll get that done before we finish tightening this guy down while we got it in that position. Now, since I can get to this plug without having to take the whole thing apart, I'm just going to go with a little bit of this Teflon pipe dope on the plug, and we're going to just put it right in place. Tighten it up with Allen. See, this thing's just held in place for you while you're working on it. That always helps out. Feels pretty snug. We'll continue tightening the switch up. We'll get it in the right position. Hook our air line and our wiring back up. So one thing to keep in mind, you don't want to over tighten this, because you could cause this to break if you over tighten it. It could get a crack in it and show up later down the road. So you want to just get it good and snug. Just kind of have to feel of it to know when you're there. All right, so we already have the piece in the new switch with the push fitting, tubing fitting. So we're just gonna take our tubing and it just sticks back in there. You push it as far as it'll go. And when you tug back on it, it will not come out unless you mash that blue piece in. All right, we'll go back in with our pressure relief valve. And I just put the Teflon pipe dope on here. I didn't put any tape, because I can get to this pretty easy if it does leak for some crazy reason. Now we'll put the gauge in. All right, here's what I got. We got to put the gauge in. So I look at this gauge and something's going on with this gauge. There's an O-ring missing. I don't know. Something was there and I had to scrape it off, but you know what? That's going to leak. I'm going to tell you right now, that'll leak. So you got to be ready for this to happen, because things like this are going to happen when you're fixing stuff. You're going to find something else that's going to need to be repaired. Well, that's why you don't throw stuff away. I went and found this out there on an old compressor that don't work anymore. And we're going to stick this one in there. It'll work. No worries. Might buy a new one later, but what the heck, it'll work. Well, here we are. We got it in there. I got it pretty tight right there. But you know, if you, what do you call it? D or CDO. If you see OCD, you got to put it in alphabetical order, I guess. But I'm not. So this gauge ain't sitting just right, straight up and down, but I don't really care. It's tight. I'm good with it. All right, so we got the gauge on. Everything's looking good. We got to hook the motor leads back up. We'll start, you know, just in reverse order, the way we took this thing apart. And as always, when I start looking around, I can't find my wrench. I done laid it down somewhere, so I gotta go look for my nut driver. It's not in my back pocket, but we're gonna find it. It's gonna take a minute. All right, we're back. I found it. Laid it on the kitchen table a while ago. And this happens. We'll tighten this up. We got our cable back in the slot, a little special slot for the cable. Just tightens it up, keeps it from moving, because this thing vibrates when it gets going. You want to make sure this stuff is tight so it don't vibrate loose, you know. So that's good and tight. So first thing I'm going to do is hook this little ground wire up. All right, just a little trick I like to do is go ahead and stick that screw in the wire connector. It'll hold it in place while you take your nut driver and beaver. Alright, tighten this round wire up. These things have self-tapping screws, so when they're new, you gotta kind of make your threads with these screws, so they're a little tough to start with. Don't worry about it, just go ahead and go in with it, and it'll make its own threads. We got that out of the way, nice and tight. Like I say, we don't want it to be any kind of loose, because it will vibrate out of there if you don't have it good and tight. So these just hook right back up where they were on the old one. So we'll get our cable from our breaker back in here. And hey, look, if you don't know anything about electricity, don't fool with this. Don't make a mistake and get yourself shocked. Have the wrong breaker off or something. If you don't know how to use a meter to check it, you know, you need to let your neighbor, whoever, your electrician neighbor or somebody come over and get the wire off for you. You know, let's be safe with it. All right, so we got the power back on. Go ahead and get you some soapy water so we can check for leaks when it builds up some pressure. So let's see if this thing's gonna come on. All right, we got about 155 PSI. That's what it looks like. So let's check for some leaks. It's going to bubble up pretty good. You'll see it, it'll be creating bubbles if it's leaking. Let's check this one under here. And blue one here. And plug. It's looking good. So the only thing I may do, get a new gauge, put it on there straight, because I am a little OCD, being honest with you. And probably go ahead and get a new pressure relief. And just in case this guy's a little bit of out of calibration, because I think that's what got me last time. This thing, one or two things. We're fixing to dig into this one and figure out what went wrong with it. I'll show y'all what I've come up with. But this pressure relief was blowing, and I think it's because this thing just was not shutting off. The contacts were stuck, and it was overpressure, and this was protecting the tank from overpressuring and going boom. So, all right, let's go see what's wrong with this one. I always like to dig in there and say, hey, what happened? It's always good to know. Okay, so these things are not made to come apart. They're made to chunk into garbage when they go bad. So there's no way to repair any of this. But I still want to get in there and see what's going on. So it's time for destruct mode. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna drill these rivets out that are stationary and not meant to come out. We're gonna take them out so we can start getting this thing apart. All right, phase one, we got this off. Now let's see. Finished getting this torn apart. Might have to drill them out a little bit more. All right, got those drilled out. Diaphragm. 40 contacts are in there. Actually, the contacts are up in here. That's what I want to get to. All right, I can already see the problem. We're going to still go in there and try to get to it, but that's the bottom side of the contacts. Looks like we had a failure. This side here. All right, I think we've got our way in there to them. That's one side of this contact that's stationary. I might can get it out, but it's a lot of heat, but I believe we can say this is what failed. Focus. This one's fairly decent, wore down pretty good, but that's what it should look like. So we got a bunch of old pieces here. I don't see any use for any of these, but hey, you did get a pretty nice spring out here. You never know what you need that for. Throw that in the old parts drawer. We'll see you on the next one.
Birch Projects.